in November when we met the first time. Maybe this is our fourth. No, that was, yeah. When we met the first time, we actually listed these, identified these as our needs in the Prescott community, so seniors could age in place and stay here, where everybody at that meeting wanted to stay in Prescott when they could no longer live in their home. So this was the list we came up with then. And some of the members from that first meeting went out and checked assisted living and memory care facilities in the immediate area and all of Pierce County, and came back and reported at our second meeting, which was the first Thursday in February. And from that, we did learn that allegedly there's going to be an assisted living memory care facility here in town. The old St. Croixdale Hospital is being renovated for that, and if you drive by there, you can see they are gutting the building, so that's a good thing. Janet.
I think Jane mentioned at our Kiwanis meeting, someone asked what timeline was on that, and she said if they keep going like they are, since they're gutting the building and not tearing it down, maybe in the fall.
Okay, did everybody hear Janet? Okay, great. So that's really good news. So then from that, we decided we'll let that piece lay and we would focus on these other topics. And the easiest way to get information on that is to have speakers come. So after we get through some of the items on the agenda, we will have our speaker from the ADRC, Aging Disability Resource Center, talk about some of the services to keep us in our homes as long as we can, especially if we're waiting for something to be constructed. You want to be able to stay in your home. So, an update. After our last meeting in February, Karen Peterson, and Hope went to the City Council planning meeting where they were looking at different things that could maybe happen in Prescott community. One of the things we found out is Jane Brand, and she's a strong advocate for what we're trying to do here, had gone around to all the landowners that have land around the city to see if any of them were willing to sell, because the city's kind of boxed in right now and nobody wanted to sell at this point. So then they have to look at what is within the city for future building and so forth. Since that time, we've also found that Jim French, who was going to do construction and development behind Joy Lutheran between there and Borner Farms, has backed out. So that development is not going to occur. But there was some real positive things about at that planning meeting that I'm going to turn over to Maureen to share, but it was about the TIFs. And those are tax
increment financing districts.
Can you stand so that I could hear you, please, Maureen?
Okay, my ears are full of water from swimming, so if I'm not loud enough, let me know. The tax increment financing districts, and Prescott has, I think, 5 of them. Yeah. So, and there are 3 active, 3, 4, and 5, and 3 is about to close. And when it closes, that money goes into the general fund and it can be used by the council to bring down property taxes. And that was always the original intention of the council way back when Mike Hunter was mayor, and he wanted to start having these industrial parks. So, but if you hold it open for an extra year, the state allows you to pull money from that and put it into a fund for assisted living development. And so we voted the other day to pull that money out and keep the fund open, the TIF open, 1 more year in order to accumulate that fund, and then it will be set aside for a reserve for assisted living. Now, that would probably be infrastructure towards assisted living. So if a builder's going to come into town, it gives us money, the city money, to invest in that developer so that they can keep the price of developing it, building, lower. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do as the city. So that is, it will postpone tax relief, property tax relief for 1 year, but it will then give us some money that we can move around as a city. So.
Marina, I have one question. Is it assisted living or affordable?
Affordable living. I'm so sorry. Affordable living. My brain is in water.
Maureen, did you get a lot of pushback from people who want that property tax relief sooner than later?
Of course, and there are a couple of people on the council who are very anxious to make that property tax relief. And we all admit property taxes are high in this part of Wisconsin, and we don't get enough back from the state. I mean, we always have those complaints, but they were persuadable, those 2 votes, and there were 3 of us who actively advocated for affordable housing. So then when we did I think the vote was unanimous. We try to get to unanimity on the city council these days because we think that's a better way to operate locally than to be ranting and yelling at each other, so.
Maureen, that extra year extended, where do those funds come from? How do they accrue? Where do they come from?
They're held by the city in their reserve accounts, and they can only be used for that purpose. The state has certain regulations about if you're going to hold back closing a TIF, then the only reason you can do that is to put aside money for affordable housing.
Do you understand, Carmen, what the TIF is?
Well, I'm not clear on that extra year where those, when you're holding back that extra year, where those monies are coming from.
A TIF allows you to sort of borrow from the future to pay for the present. And so that's how we got all the infrastructure into the industrial park. But to put in an industrial park, then those people pay considerable amount in taxes, property taxes. So that money then comes back, and it first pays back what we borrowed into the future on. And then and you have to do that before it closes. So the city has a payoff, and each one of them, we get a running total of how much debt we still owe into the TIF so we're paying back first the tax bonds that the citizens are funding. It's your money that's funding these TIFs. So we first have to pay back the tax money that we borrowed ahead on, and then those taxes that are paid by UNFI and Diversified, they will, when you close them, their tax monies then revert to the general fund, which is split between the technical college, the school district, the city, and I think there's one more entity in the county. So that's what your property taxes do. They're split 4 ways. So then, but it would allow, now I can't say what the other taxing cities or parts of that formula are going to do, but I'm fond of reminding the council, taxes never go down, but that was our hope, is that we would be, and the city's done a pretty good job of keeping our levy low. So the idea would be to reduce the levy from the city's part of that money and be able to give a little bit of tax relief to property owners. And the last quote I think I saw was $100 per thousand out of this tax increment district, and then
100,000?
per 100,000.
Yeah, on your tax.
Yeah, sorry. And then, but when the other one, the 5th one closes, we should expect a really nice property tax. But that won't be till 2026. But that would, I mean, it's really going to be beneficial. It's coming, yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. And I want to tell everybody here that when we went to that meeting, Maureen and Jane Brand and our Mayor Dave Holville were very, very supportive of that other money going to be available to go into affordable housing. And I've had a couple conversations with Jane Brand since then, and she also recognizes that need, and she's been really doing a lot of legwork trying to find companies, construction companies or whatever, that would be willing to come to Prescott and do some affordable housing. Not only for seniors who maybe want to move out of their current 2-story, 3-story home into something more convenient and not as huge, but also there's a lot of families in town who are not working in Minnesota making a lot of money who need some housing options. So, any questions on any of that? Janet?
Well, Jane just spoke at Quantas.
Can you stand up if you're going to share?
Jane just spoke at Quantas, and she mentioned the property, Joy, that was still going on.
Oh,
As of a meeting Monday?
okay.
Oh, I
think she indicated that was still going on, and I thought too that it hadn't. But
Okay, well, maybe
you were
there's...
at that meeting too. Jane mentioned that the property south of Joy was ongoing.
Yes, it's at the Planning Commission currently. Yep.
Okay, well,
So they haven't killed it yet.
and that's important, you know, because
Thank you.
we always need to clarify, as we remember from other meetings here, sometimes we hear things and then we have to clarify.
That's why it surprised me, because I had heard the same thing you had.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Maybe we'll have our speaker talk now, and then there will be time for questions and so forth. Tammy Decker from the nutrition site is home with the flu. However, Michelle will have the same information Tammy would have presented. So I'd like to present my ex-coworker, Michelle Meinen from the Aging Disability Resource Center. And she's going to talk about different resources and so forth for keeping us in our home. What you should be looking for, not specific companies, okay? But what things could help us keep us in our home longer than maybe we would have, especially if you don't have family around, which is a lot of us. Sure. Thank you, Michelle.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm one of the social workers in the ADRC. I'm going to talk about Tammy's stuff first so I don't forget any of that. Tammy is our meal site coordinator for Prescott. Each of the communities in Pierce County have a meal site that alternates when they have them. If you haven't participated in them, the easiest way to be able to go to the meal site is to just go there and at 12:30 the day before your meal, you sign up that you want the next day. So we call in the meals every day. So there's different numbers of meals that are provided. The meals for Prescott come from the Ellsworth grocery store. They prepare all the meals and then they're brought over on a daily basis. We also have a Meals on Wheels program. Meals on Wheels program is specific for those that are homebound and unable to get out into the community. If you are interested in having meals delivered to your home and you're kind of meeting that homebound classification, you can call the ADRC. The phone number for the ADRC, I'm just going to say it for the camera, is 715-273-6780. And I'm going to refer back to call the ADRC. That's what we're there for. We are a resource center and we get questions about everything. So feel free to give us a call if you have questions about services, if you need to sign up for meal assistance kind of programs, or we also have voluntary transportation program. Our transportation program, there's two parts to it. We have a shopper van that in Prescott goes from Prescott to Hastings every Thursday afternoon after the meals are done. So it's right around 1:30 usually. You can sign up for that just by calling the ADRC and talking to Lena or whoever answers the phone these days. and we can get you on the shopper van. Usually everybody kind of goes together to Walmart, I think is the destination most people go to here. The other form of transportation that we have is for medical appointments. We have volunteer drivers that, we have volunteer drivers that offer their services, and we're always looking for drivers if anybody's interested in this. Volunteer drivers, we coordinate with the volunteers to provide medical appointments. We go to the cities, we go to Rochester on a regular basis, and then also the local areas for clinics. So the volunteer drivers are super important to help for anybody 60 and above to be able to have transportation for medical appointments in our area. The other thing that Tammy wanted me to make sure is that each of the meal sites has a happy birthday list. If you would like your birthday recognized in our ADRC newsletter, I have a sign-up sheet. So I was told, make sure that I put this out here, and then every month we have a newsletter, and if you don't have this already coming, this can be signed up for too today.
We have them here.
No, that's our resource guide. That's a little different.
Yeah, well, we do have them over there. So
Okay. They're someplace then.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, they can be mailed to your house as well. In our resource, or in our newspaper, not the resource guide, in our newspaper it has a listing of what the meals are for our meal sites, and then it has all kinds of information. And they change on a regular basis. And we have a new publicist, so now it's in color this year, so it helps a little bit. So if anybody's interested in signing up, please do that before you leave. I also brought resource guides, as you were referring to. Our resource guide is phone numbers for companies in our area. We have phone numbers for as many things as you can possibly think of that you would call the ADRC for. So if you're looking for assistance with lifeline services, there's different phone contact information in here. If you're looking for kind of recommendations on doing some adaptation to your house to help to keep people living there, building ramps, all of those kind of things, there's resources in here. If you are looking for specific placements or subsidized housing records or destinations, kind of if you were looking at moving to different places, all of those phone numbers are in here. We don't necessarily do the specific applications for each of the places. Like if you wanted to get into an apartment setting, you still have to work with those companies directly because they change their forms too much that we can't keep track of them. But I'm going to leave some of these here too, because this is kind of our go-to. If you need any kind of assistance, that majority of our questions come out of this resource guide.
I'd like to endorse that guide. It has an absolutely amazing variety of services and so forth available for seniors. Just astonishing. I was amazed when I read the thing first.
Yeah, we put a lot of work into this. Lena does this on a yearly basis. There's going to be a new one that's going to be coming out. It's getting printed. It was supposed to be here today, and that didn't make the cut. So it'll be coming, I think, in the next week or so. So it'll have some updated information too. And we can send some out here. Sure. When Kathy had asked about things to consider to help people stay at home, some of the things that we recommend is technology is coming into play quite a bit lately. So there are different kind of pieces with technology, whether it's lifeline services. Lifeline services are those push the button in case you fall, but they have advanced. Those services have advanced that they also have fall detection. So if you have somebody that passes out and they aren't able to push the button first, it would automatically detect if there's a change in altitude. So the technology pieces are growing. What?
Nice if you live at home.
Yep, absolutely. The other thing that I've seen, and I've been working in the ADRC for about 8 years now, is that there's like Alexa or Google have different speakerphone things. Mm-hmm. We have clients that are using those pretty regularly. You can make your environment pretty tech savvy. I have an individual that I work with in River Falls that is legally blind, and he does everything through Alexa. And he will say, Alexa, when is my appointment for this? And Alexa will say, you have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. Please remember at this time. So it's a way of kind of helping for adaptive situations. So I want to encourage people to kind of know that those are some options too that kind of help to sustain people in their home. We have other people that have been working with family members get very worried about people living by themselves. So the little nanny cams, I've had quite a few families that will put the nanny cam in the kitchen, just so they're kind of aware, especially if there's fall concerns or if there's illness stuff going on, so that family members from far away can kind of be mindful of what's going on in their parents' houses, not overly inclusive, it's not going to get in your face or anything, but it's something just to...
They can tell if you got up that morning and made coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or it can help in case you leave something on the stove.
It can, yeah, little things. Yeah, absolutely. The other things that we encourage people to also look into if they're having some difficulties is grocery delivery. Pretty sure tax.
Yes, they do.
Also, I know that there's different pharmacies in the area that do the prescription delivery, or you can get it set up to have the mail delivery of prescriptions as well. The other piece is a program that's a Medicaid-funded program. And I talk about the program through the ADRC. We have something that's called options counseling. So there's 3 of us in the ADRC that are options counselors, and our goal is to kind of help clients, to help you guys to figure out how to assist you with spending your funds the way that is going to keep you living where you want to be living as much as possible. So that can be private pay services that we can kind of sit down and map out the different options of what the cost may be for private pay services. Can be moving to subsidized housing, can be privately paying for assisted living level of care. And then after that point, if there is financial eligibility and functional eligibility, we have a program that's called Family Care. Family Care requires both of those pieces, and it looks at asset levels. So it requires a functional need, and the functional need that we come out and ask questions about is we are establishing what's called a nursing home level of care. So what that means is if you did not have help from family members or neighbors or somebody, in 6 to 8 weeks would you end up in a nursing home. So it's a high level of care needs. We ask about 50 questions that looks at activities of daily living. Are you needing help with bathing, walking, transferring, meals, paying your bills, setting up medications, overnight care. So it looks at a lot of different questions, and what we're evaluating is the functional eligibility for this program. If you meet the functional eligibility, the second part of that is the financial eligibility. We do elderly, blind, and disabled applications for the financial eligibility. And there's different asset limits. So it's not your income that we look at. It's what you have in bank accounts after you pay your bills. Cash values on life insurance policies is an asset, investments, CDs, annuities, all kinds of different financial things. And what we look at for a single individual is the assets have a pretty low asset level that you have to spend down to $2,000. And that is for a single individual. And then for couples, those asset limits change very differently. We have a variety of asset limits for couples because they want to be able to have the spouse not be pushed out of their home if more service needs need to be paid for the person that needs the services. So it's to try and help maintain people living in their homes for both person on services, but also the spouse as much as possible. When it comes to asset limits, I encourage you to call the ADRC if you have questions about it, because there's lots of details in this, and every single case is a little bit different. I can tell you when we're looking at assets, if you're living in your own home, the house is exempt, and one vehicle is exempt. So that means that those aren't counted as your assets, but if you have a cabin up north, that's going to count as your asset. If you have multiple vehicles or tractors or motorcycles, those also are considered assets. So if you have interest in kind of figuring out what your asset situation is, the ADRC always can kind of work through that with couples too. Because there is some benefit to figuring that out before you need care. The reason why that can be helpful is that there's certain things that you can have that aren't counted as assets, and there's things that are counted as assets. And there's differences between asset limits that, I brought a little chart, and this is going to get a little complicated, so I'll just put that out there. The state of Wisconsin wants people that if they have a higher level of assets, they can maintain a higher level of assets before Medicaid kicks in. So if people have assets in between 100,000 and I think it's 261 is the 2020 number now. We figure out an asset assessment, and then the assets have to be spent down to half. So if they're below 100,000, it is 2,000 for the person on the program and 50,000 for the spouse. So that means that if you're below 100,000, you got to spend down to 52. If you're above 100,000 up to 257, you spend down to half. So if you have 200,000, spending down to half means that you would have 100,000 that the spouse would be able to maintain instead of having to go down to 50,000. So there can be some benefits to things to be able to figure this stuff out sooner than later.
And does that mean the spouse has to stay in the home, or could the spouse be in like assisted living? The spouse for the 2,000 in assisted living and the other spouse in their home?
So the house is an exempted asset as long as somebody's there.
Right.
If both people move out of the house, no, that's not exempt. No, that's an asset. But the whole point of this is that anything below nursing home is considered community-based. So even if there's two people, one on Medicaid and one not on Medicaid, it could fund the one person on Medicaid, but the spouse would then be privately paying and able to use their assets to pay for things.
In their home?
In their home, or if they both were living at assisted livings too.
Okay.
So we encourage you, this stuff gets really complicated, but Gary, Kathy, and I have been doing this a long time. So if you have questions about it, feel free to give the ADRC a call, and we can kind of talk through different situations. Some of the things that I just want to bring up are the reasons why people don't typically qualify for Medicaid. And I'm going to just throw them out there. Life insurance policies with cash values are probably the number one thing. That a lot of times people will know what they have in their bank accounts or what their assets are, but that amount of cash value of the insurance policies that you can take a loan against turns into the assets that more often than not, in my experience, are the ones that's the reason why people don't qualify. They cash out their life insurance policy and then spend that money down before they qualify. But there is an option to life insurance policies. There are burial trusts or funeral trusts that can be set up with the funeral homes directly. And there's different types of trusts for that. But that's exempted. So you can kind of plan for funeral expenses, and that's not counted against you. And I bring that up because it consistently is the reason why people have to wait to get on services. So I encourage you to, if you're interested in kind of seeing about burial trusts, the funeral homes in the area all do them. They know kind of ins and outs, and that's their expertise. They know how to look at what your insurance is and how much you have available to you, and if it makes sense to convert it over to a burial trust or not. The other thing is kind of if you have a bigger estate or if you have just estate planning questions, there's always elder law attorneys in our area that can assist with kind of making some very planful choices on things. Because we don't want you to get to the point that you run out of funds and some of the money you gave away or have set aside and given to your children, and then you're not eligible for Medicaid. And so we don't want people to make mistakes. It's called divestment. That there's times when people will give money away and Medicaid will say they have the right to do a 5-year look back. So if you need services today, they have the right to go 5 years back They don't always, but they have the right to look at bank accounts, and if there was money given away, large sums, they're gonna question that. And if those funds could have been used to pay for your care, Medicaid will say, nope, we're not paying for this until we kind of match up with those money amounts.
What's considered a lunch? Who knows?
They decide that, I don't. So I've had workers that have been thousands of dollars, but I've had other people that have questioned hundreds of dollars. So I can't answer that question for you. They have a system that they figure out. So it's just being mindful that you don't want to just be giving funds away. And there's exceptions to that, and that's why I encourage you to talk to lawyers about it, because they know the ins and outs of how to be able to use your money in a way that's not going to have consequences later.
So what I'm hearing is if you need to spend down, don't give the money to your kids. Are there other things you shouldn't be spending it on when you're spending down?
It's just not giving it away. I mean, the biggest thing is when you are spending down, you can pay for a house remodel, you can pay for anything that's for you.
So it's not donations and giving it away.
Right. There is exceptions to these things. There are always exceptions. But like if you have a pattern of giving, let's say you're giving to the church every Sunday, and you're doing a donation every Sunday, and there's a pattern in your checking account that shows $10, $20, whatever, went to the bank or went to the church out of my bank account every week. That's a pattern of giving. So they allow for some of the patterns of giving, and that's why I encourage you to talk to lawyers about it, because there is some exceptions. There's exceptions to all of this stuff. So I encourage you to talk to, you can give us a call and we can kind of talk through some of the specifics of your situations, or you can contact any of the elder law attorneys in our area and they can help to set things up for you too.
Can you just touch on the difference between the two trusts that a lot of people set up, revocable and irrevocable?
Good call. Good call. So what Kathy's referring to, for the funeral trust to be considered an exempt asset, it also needs that word irrevocable, which means once you put the money into it, you can't take it back out. So it's important that you're mindful of that word irrevocable. So the money goes into a burial trust. Money needs to match up with the amount of services that you're going to have, or amount of goods that you're going to be purchasing. So when people set up a burial account, they pay for the service, they pay for the casket, they pay for the plot, and those money amounts have to be the same amount as what you have put into it. So you can't put $10,000 into it but have a $5,000 funeral. That's not the way it works. It has to be matching in order for things, because that money doesn't come back out. So it stays there. So that irrevocable is a big word for everything, for burial.
My father had a revocable trust, but it converted to irrevocable on his death. That caused the family a great deal of problems with the trust. And so be cautious of what you're doing when you set those things up. I just would add that.
So I'm talking about burial trust. There are also family trusts.
That's what he had.
Yeah, and that's what you're kind of referring to. Family trust, I encourage you to talk to lawyers.
Yeah.
The laws for family trust changed in 2011. So things that people used to put farms in the trust. They would put whatever into the trust. And it used to be that when money was put into the trust, it was there, and then they could get Medicaid funding in addition. Those laws changed. So now a lawyer has to look at the trust, like a county lawyer looks at the trust to make the determination how it is funded and if it's considered an available asset or not. So if there are family trusts, I encourage you to talk to the lawyers to see about Medicaid eligibility and how those trusts might affect things. Because we still have people on a regular basis that'll say, well, it's in the trust, so you can't do anything about it. It changed. That means that sometimes those assets that are put aside can be used and have to be spent down before Medicaid would happen. So I bring up this because assisted living, if you are looking for assisted living is funded through this family care program. So if somebody, majority of the assisted, or not majority, some of the assisted living in our area have requirements of a 2-year private pay. Some of them don't, but the ones that have requirement of 2-year private pay, which means that you need to have assets available to pay 2 years before Medicaid funding happens. And in those situations, people get very nervous about running out of money and living in assisted living and not being able to afford to stay there. The family care program pays for anything below a nursing home level of care. So it'll pay for assisted living, it'll pay for memory care units, it'll pay for community-based residential facilities, which are called CBRFs in our world, or residential care apartment complexes, which is RCAC. So those are different levels of assisted living. I know, I backtracked a little bit.
That's okay.
So it'll pay for assisted living. It's because it's not nursing home. It's below a nursing home level, and it's still considered community-based for the assisted livings. Most of the assisted livings in our area work with our managed care organizations, which are the ones that manage the Medicaid funding for the people, basically. They work with our managed care organizations, and we have 2 of them in our area that then they have contracts with to figure out how many beds are available in each facility for Medicaid funded clients. There are limits to that in all of the facilities that we have. Most of them, about 10% of the beds are eligible for Medicaid funding, but that 10% can also include people that are living their private pay and then are getting converted over into Medicaid funding. So that's why some of our newer places have longer waiting lists, because people have moved in there and privately paid, and now they're running out of money and going on to Medicaid. So the services kind of change a little bit. We have been hearing about assisted livings coming to Prescott for many years, so I'm hoping that does occur, because I know how important that is to be able to stay. Yeah, it's great to be able to stay in your own communities. I don't know, any other questions?
Can we call you?
You can call me. I have my card up here. If you want any resource information, I have that up here. If you want any newsletters. The other thing that I'm just going to throw out there, part of my job is adult protection as well. And so we had gotten these free bookmarks that talked about identity theft and scams. And we get phone calls pretty regularly. Today it's River Falls for some reason. The scammers tend to call communities in blocks of time. And so what we see is kind of a pattern that's been happening, that all of a sudden we get a bunch of calls from Ellsworth, a bunch of calls from River Falls, and it's all kind of the same thing. Multiple phone calls today were FBI related. That people were getting text messages that the FBI was coming to arrest them if they didn't pay them. So some of them are silly, but some of them are very, very complex. The Bureau of Consumer Protection came and spoke with us at one of our meetings last week, and she had left these resources with. So if anybody wants some information, Bureau of Consumer Protection oversees all of the scamming kind of things. So they keep a running list of different kind of scams that are going on in our area. I encourage you, if you have something that seems fishy and you're not really sure, please give us a call. We have lots of people that call us just to say, is this real or is this not real? And we want you to call us, because the majority of the time we get the information updated pretty regularly of what scams are happening in our area. And we have seen, the state is keeping track of how much financially is impacted with scams in Wisconsin. We have seen big amounts in Pierce County, hundreds of thousands of dollars for individual people. So I encourage you that if there's something fishy going on, please give us a call. There's a lot of romance scams, or people that will call you 5-6 times a day and tell you everything you want to hear, and eventually they're going to ask you for money. And they come up with all kinds of very in-depth reasons, whether it's the grandchild that's locked up abroad on a trip, or if it's somebody that you've been talking to for months and now is stuck overseas. There's all kinds of reasons that they come up with, reasons why they need money. But we encourage you, as much as possible, please give us a call so we can kind of talk things through. and make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of. I think that's it.
I might have missed it, Michelle. Did you talk about how medical transportation is reimbursed or?
Oh, I did not.
Can you mention?
Kind of. So medical transportation, when it comes to, are you talking about volunteer driver transportation, or are you talking, what do you mean?
Well, if I called up and said I need a ride to United Hospital.
So how we do it is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, so transportation and the meals programs are donation-based programs that we have, which means the county sends out donation letters at the end of the month. And it tells you how much it is a cost to the county, and whatever you can afford to donate back is how we sustain the programs for more people. So the transportation, there's usually a mileage reimbursement amount. That's what you're going to get the donation letter for, is the mileage amount.
Then do you want to mention the need for volunteers?
Yeah, we always are looking for drivers. It can be, we are super flexible. Like, it can be once a week that you're available on this day. Lena is the one that coordinates our transportation program at the ADRC. She knows everybody, so she knows what availabilities people have, who gets along with who's going to do a ride to where, who's okay driving to the cities. If they aren't, to where they can go. So she gets to know the drivers very closely to know what you're comfortable with and what you're not, and we're not going to make you do anything you're not comfortable for. So we're always looking for drivers. Drivers, I believe, get reimbursed the mileage rate.
Yeah.
Is what the volunteer drivers, I think, get reimbursement for.
Not much.
It's not much, right.
65 cents.
To add a personal touch to that, for 6 months this fall, I had to have transportation. And I used those two services from the county. The Thursday transportation to Hastings, they took me to different places where I had to order something to pick up. They were wonderful. And the health transportation, medical transportation, I had 2 volunteer drivers that were fabulous. They got their mileage, of course, that I paid. But they took me up to United, waited for me. I mean, it was just such a service that was so appreciated. And when you don't have to involve your family on a commute that takes up their time from their employment. You don't have to call on a neighbor and feel you're imposing. This was a service, both of those services are wonderful. Even if you drive in the wintertime to get picked up at your door and not have to take your car out when you're a senior, sometimes it's really worthwhile. And it's like, I think they asked a $3 or $4 donation if you can, that you just drop in a bucket there in the van. And it was Joanne Nestor was beautiful as our director here. She retired, and Tammy is stepping in full force. She's doing a great job too. So, in addition to that, I'd like to encourage anybody here to take part in the activities there at the nutrition site and participate in the meals. You know, it's a wonderful program, and if we don't use it, we lose it. So
That's true.
My husband drives, and a lot of his people call him first.
Yeah. And then they got to call me.
Are you going to be available this day? Okay, I'll make my appointment then. Then they'll call. I'm putting that in.
It's developing relationships. So, I mean, just like Lena knows what the drivers are okay with, the drivers know what everybody else is okay with too. Yeah. And it's the same thing at the meal site. It's about the community and developing those relationships. Because isolation is kind of the #1 thing that causes some pretty bad problems for people.
Is there anyone that does taxes anymore?
We have ARP taxes, and there's 4 dates, and they're full. So ARP will come to, we usually send that out in January when the dates are, it was in the newsletter, I believe. And it fills up really fast. So I know that there's other dates, and the way we do the tax dates is that Lena schedules them by the hour. There's 4 slots per hour. It used to be it was first come, first serve, and you sat there until it was time to do it. I think St. Clair County still has kind of the first come, first serve options, and so they don't have specific limitations.
You said that Hudson had the first come, first serve.
Yeah.
But that's all we ever suggested.
Yeah.
When we're looking for someone,
Right.
that
Right.
Michelle, how much are the meals at the, you know,
Nutrition.
The nutrition site, I believe the meals are $4. And then the meals, if they need home delivery, are $8.50 right now. So the reason why there's a cost to that difference is because the driver's driving everywhere and we have to prepare the meals differently than the meal site does.
Even a little town like this.
Even a little town.
That's a suggested
That's
donation.
suggested. These are donation programs, so if you can't afford it,
He's got 9 people to go over.
And I will say that $4 is if you're a senior. You can come in and eat there if you're not a senior at
That's true.
senior age, but you pay more. So you pass it.
16 a buck?
And they're well-balanced meals.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
and they're dietitian approved and everything else, so. Any other questions?
Do you want to hold up your newsletter there? I do, but we get the newsletter here that you can pick up. But also, if you want it mailed to you, you can let the ADRC know, and they will mail that newsletter to you. And that's where the ARP tax information would have been in.
Usually they go all the time.
Yeah, they're again, another good resource. And
Yeah. Yeah. And these are constantly evolving, like people call us with different articles, so then we just keep adding things to this, so they kind of morph into their own little thing here, so we encourage you to kind of try and stay connected with this. Yeah. I don't know.
Any other questions for Michelle? I guess the biggest point that she made is if you have questions about anything, call the ADRC. And that number is on the newsletter. It's also on the resource form she's set up.
Yep.
And so, you know, they will answer your questions whichever way. I need some service, or I need some help financially, or the home delivered meals, they can be short term. If you just had surgery and you can't cook, you call and, you know, maybe you only need them for 6 weeks. But, you know, those are things, like Carmen said, the transportation, she only needed it for a short time, but it was there.
And now I'm driving, but like I say, in the wintertime, if I don't want to drive, I can, you know, if weather's not good, the van will pick me up at the door.
And that's for the shopping? They picked you up at the door?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one you said they had the bucket to throw some money in? Okay. Where this one is, you know, they will let you know what it costs.
You're set to
But
go.
the shopping one is a donation.
How much lead time do you have to give them to get either one of those?
The shopper van is, you can just call us like a day or two ahead of time. Medical appointments, because we are working with a variety of volunteers, it's helpful to have at least 2 days lead time to be able to try and find somebody. And Lena tries her best. She does not cancel appointments if there's anyone that can possibly go and do the rides instead. So if you can set them up ahead of time and give us some leeway, that helps for us to coordinate things.
What about someone with a wheelchair or a
So we
walker?
have some adaptive vans that have wheelchair accessibility. There's only certain people that are qualified to drive those vehicles. So if you have appointments that you are wheelchair bound and you need rides for appointments, call us earlier. Set those things up and give us some time, because we got to coordinate with the county people that are authorized to be able to do the transportation vans with lifts. Because you have to have special training for all of that. Walkers, it's more about your ability to transfer in and out of vehicles. Like there's some people that have to be in a car, there's other people that are okay with being in an SUV or a truck. And we ask those questions when we set up the rides, because we don't want to have anybody fall. And we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the situation, both the volunteers and the people that are riding too. So, give us details is what I'm saying.
What are the office hours?
The office is open from 8 to 4:30. And we all cover the phones at these days, so there's times that you will get Lena, she's our main person that answers the phone, but you get all of us now too. We all take turns covering phones, so just give us a call, and there's very rarely that you'll leave a voicemail, but if you leave a voicemail, somebody will call you back. We'll figure out who the right person is. We always have Jane that does the elderly benefits specialist, and Robin Pescar is our disability benefits specialist as well. So I bring that up just so if there's other family members and you have questions about other forms of Medicaid, Badger Care, other Medicaid programs that help to pay for Part B premiums, energy assistance, food share, we can kind of help to get you going in the right direction where you need to apply for those things too.
Some of you may have heard Jane White talk last fall, and we'll try to have her back again this fall. She was here and talked about the changes in Medicare and the different Medicare supplement programs, what they covered, what they didn't, and we'll try to have her back because she's an excellent resource when that pocket of time comes available where you can switch your supplement insurance if it's not meeting your needs. She's a great resource for helping you sort that out. She's in the same office as Michelle.
Any other questions? Okay, I gotta do this birthday thing, so I'm just gonna pass this around because otherwise I'm gonna get yelled at for not getting people's names on it. So if you have any questions, I'll stick around for, I don't know how much, is this the end of the meeting or you have more?
No, future speakers.
I'll just stick around for a little bit. So if people have individual questions, feel free to give me a chat with me afterwards. And my card's sitting here too.
Thank you.